Hey everyone, it's Donna here again, inviting you to today's self-love reunion speaker, and I am super excited. First, I invite you to hit the subscribe button, and just to remind everyone, this self-love reunion was put together because 1 in 2 women across the globe actually have more self-doubt than self-love. This reunion is here to help transform and help people get into that space of deeper self-respect, because love is the most powerful force in existence. I'll see you on the inside. Well, hello everyone. Welcome. I'm Donna and I am the host for this Art of Self-Love reunion. And as you know, we are here together to revitalize the human spirit at this time, this pivotal time that's happening in all of our lives. So my special guest for the next hour is Tasia Keeng, and she owns LoveLight Home Design. It's an interior design company with a focus on bringing joy and increased quality of life. Tasia is passionate about wellness within an environment and has created the holistic harmony impact to measure to what degree your surroundings work to support you. Tasia is also a practitioner of feng shui, as well as an intervenor for individuals who are deaf-blind. She's become a path changer by combining design, evidence-based science, and access for all through her home harmony healing system. Tasia, welcome. This is fabulous. Thank you for joining all of us. I think there's lots to delve into with you.
Oh, yes.
We're talking about the art of self-love. And I think one of the key things for everyone is we've all had a journey to get to where we are. So I would love first if you would just share with us, how do you get into this world of interior design? What led you to this path?
Well, I must say that, well, thank you firstly for having me here. It's extremely exciting, and I love coming on and sharing what I do. And this is important because the home is important, or your space is important. Now, there are 2 very big reasons why I built this business. You mentioned just now, you introduced that I'm an intervener for individuals who are deaf-blind. And for a lot of you who do not know, just like a sign language interpreter interprets for individuals who are deaf, an intervener basically brings information in the world to individuals who are deaf and blind, like Helen Keller. And no matter whether or not they were born deafblind or they became deafblind later in life, a lot of them don't have this in their space or with the family or the people that they communicate with. When I was working with a lot of these individuals, you can well imagine that they feel very isolated. A lot of them are very depressed. Their world is not full of a lot of joy. There's very little joy that comes to them because either they don't realize that it's there or they've lost a lot of that. And what made me really sad and even emotional right now was that they just existed in their space or with their family members without the feeling that the space could be beautiful and harmonized and incredible, along with all the access that they required for them and their family, the communication that came with it. And I was like, no, that can't be the way of their life. There needs to be some joy that comes to it. So one of those missions was that not only for anybody who is deafblind, but anybody in the world really deserves that, to feel the joy and abundance in a space that they're either living in or they're working in. Why would that not be the situation? I myself, I'm born in England, I'm English, and I'm now Canadian. And my family relocated to Singapore because my mom was Singaporean for work when I was about 10. And I lived in Singapore for about 20 years, even though my family members went back to England. My dad's a New Zealander, so he's in Australia. And I lived there. And in the 20 years that I was in Singapore, when I look back on it now, either I was living with somebody or every space that I lived in was just a roof over my head. I never really felt the joy of it being my own home, my own haven, my own safe space. And so many people that I've come across tell me that it's just a rental apartment, or the home doesn't really feel like something. And I'm like, again, why? So what motivates me in everything that I do with LoveLight Home Design is making sure that people understand that their home can be a wonderful, joyful space. You know, it just doesn't have to just be. And that's what my mission is, because there should be joy, there should be prosperity, there should be the safe space.
And I love that. And I think, you know, beautiful for you and the work that you're doing, because it's I mean, with deaf-blind people, and just to understand accessibility, we forget how important it is for everyone around us, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you're bringing that in, people have just ideas of what that means. But when you come back just to the everyday person, and I'll use myself, I certainly only can, I hear exactly what you're saying. You know, you come into, because I rent, I don't own, you come into a rental and you want to dress it up and make it yours. And then there's that part of that period, which is, okay, it's not mine, it is mine. How do I ground this and really feel into this space?
Yeah.
So it's really more than being motivated. There has to be this inspiration that comes forward in this. So, you know, how do we take what we're doing in this space of design and what you do, how do you work with them even to get that inspiration going, right?
So I'm going to take it a little bit back, because we talked about the holistic harmony impact. And when I look at it, I'm just going to run through it very quickly so that people realize how I'm looking at what kind of state you're in, because there are 4 different states.
Wonderful.
So the first state is what I call maelstrom. And maelstrom is a state where you would feel like you're in a state of chaos in your life. So it doesn't mean just chaos in the house where you talk about clutter and things everywhere. You know, you generally feel that your life is chaotic, whether it's your finances, your relationships with people. You generally, some people feel depressed, some people may not, but you feel a deep sense of overwhelm, like life is just falling apart. And you're trying, you don't really know what to do in your space. So either you resign to it being the way it is, or you don't know how to, you just don't want to move from it. So one extreme is with hoarders, right? You would like be a hoarder and you have just absolutely given up. But some people are just resigned because they think that's what it should be because of the state that they're in.
Or it's habit. It's habit as well.
Well, habit is a little bit later. Habit,
okay,
I
sure.
call something very different.
Okay,
the
sorry.
Second state, oh, don't worry. It's just that when I'm looking at people, when I'm talking to people, I actually think about what state they're in. So this is the worst state. The next to worst state is what I call insular. So insular is when you feel like, you know that unlike with the maelstrom state where you really don't want to move at all, in the insular state, you kind of feel that things can get a little bit better, but you feel very stuck. You don't know where to go. You may have tried a couple of little things, but you're generally feeling lack of a lot of things. You are anxiety, you're very stressed out, and you just feel like I don't know how to move and I don't know where to shift. And a lot of people, a lot of my clients start in that state because that's where they reach out to me and go, help, please help. I don't know what's going on. Like their finances are stuck, the relationship's still just mediocre, or like not at the best. Like their state of being, the state of health on every level, whether it's mental, emotional, and physical in their home, is in a state of just flatline, right? And the last state is what I call pedestrian or complacency. And what is in that state is where you just feel you're in your comfort zone. This is what you call, like, you don't want to shift. You think that this is the best it can be. Life is just fits. But there is a general sense of lack of joy in the space. So your finances may be great. You kind of have incorporated some self-care and wellness, but either you don't see that it can be so much better, or you decide that it's too inconvenient for you to try and get it better. And then you just try dabbling and getting your own stuff, and then you're going, but why does it not fit? Okay, there's something at the back of your mind that goes, it's just not, I'm just not there yet, right? So those are the states. And so what I do with the home harmony healing system is that there are 4 different assets that I use. So the first asset is what I call intuitive composition. That's where the design comes in. I take a look at what is your design style, because everybody has a different design style. Some like minimalism, some like the mid-century stuff, some like traditional. There's so many different styles. So we're going to look at that because, oh, goodness forbid, I actually designed for you something that you really look at and you go, this is totally not me, right? You want to be comfortable in your space. A lot of people complain to me about lack of organization. That's where the clutter comes in. I have no place to put something, or I just kind of shove it in the closet and it's away from me, or it just is, but they don't really like the organization. A lot of people don't look at the layout of their homes or the way they move in the home or the flow of a home. You know how you move in a space, so they bump into things or furniture is not, or they just shove everything against walls. So that's where I take a look at it. I also look at what I call prosperity cultivators. Prosperity cultivators are where you look at augmenting your time and your finances. So time is when you actually pile too many things on your plate. A lot of us do this. I'm an overachiever myself. I don't know. And I literally try and put too many things on my plate at one point of time. So for many of my clients or people who partner with me, they may say, for example, in a home, oh, I'm gonna like put this aside, or I'll put this away later, or I'll do something later. And they don't build routines or easy access to something where they can actually just put things in the place and put it away fast. They don't have to push it forward. And then it piles up and they go, oh, it's too much. And then they start feeling anxiety. We also have what we call helpful harmonizations. The helpful harmonizations are where the wellness of physical, mental, and emotional parts of self. A lot of people, I am sure, I'm a woman, I may not have kids, but I have pets and I have a husband. And we do everything for everybody else and we do little for ourselves on every aspect. So the helpful harmonization is where the sensory input comes in. It's where the access comes in. It talks about wellness of self, where you actually set up and create spaces for yourself, where you also look after yourself and you look after the wellness of other beings. So it creates benefits within relationships. You know, you have more relationships that are better because you are actually creating privacy, and with privacy you create dignity. And there's also the disability access, because if you think about it, the elders within a home, if you are living with anybody who needs or you need to create access for, a lot of things, physical pain creates an emotional or mental reaction to something, and you don't want these to be in your space. So it's all about self-wellness. And the last are the affinity accords, and that's where I talk about feng shui. A lot of people don't understand feng shui. They think it's all about clutter, and it's not. What I call feng shui is quantum physics. So think about this. The world is created out of energy. Everything in the world is created out of energy, whether it's the external, whether it's the universe, or whether it's internally, we are created with energy, natural energy. And all of these energies vibrate at different levels. Now, I can't explain quantum physics to you, but I can explain that when something does not, so think of like the North Pole, you know, like a magnet. If you bring a magnet together, it either repels or it attracts. So different elements within the natural world either repel or attract based on vibrations. And what we do in feng shui is that we measure the energy within a space, and especially with the helpful harmonizations, you have energy going on in your body. You have heat, you have water within you, everything that goes on. How are you energetically vibrating with your space? Because that vibration will cause different things to go on. So you look at sleep patterns, eating patterns, your own body, whether or not people have accidents. Some people have big accidents, some people have small accidents, some people feel aches and pains. I have had, and I can tell you stories about situations where I've gone into places where something is not vibrating in the right energy. I find points where there's an abundance point and people earn a ton more money in just by moving to that space. And I've created home offices where it's blown people through the roof.
Wow.
Yes.
So would you ever move, and not to interject you too long, but would you move somebody's office to a different room potentially?
I would work with a person. So what we do is when we look at feng shui, we always look at the entire space. So we look at the entire space because I have to measure the space. And if we need to kind of narrow down to a specific place based on what the client really wants to work on. So sometimes they're not sleeping. I've had insomniacs who have only slept. I had a gentleman who was insomniac who slept 3 hours every single day for 15 years. And I went to his house to measure it. And he when he told me about that, I went to his bedroom. there were a couple of things that required feng shui wise, but there were also other things that were going on that were more that were logical to him, because he's very logical. And one of those was that he had a TV and a stereo system in his room. And I said, these need to be moved because these electronics create EMF signals, electromagnetic frequency signals, that create different vibrations that cause disharmony. And he had a fan right above him that he never used above him. And I said, your subconscious mind creates this thought the moment you close your eyes, because you're looking at this before you close your eyes, that during your sleep, it's going to drop on you. So how would you sleep? So there were specific things that were feng shui based that we put into place, but I asked him to move all that. He is now sleeping 7 hours a day. He called me and said, my life has changed. And now I have an excellent relationship with my daughter. He has a very young daughter that he never had before because he was always tired. He was exhausted. And those are very simple things.
Those are very simple things. And I think, I mean, I've heard of feng shui in many different ways across the years, but that intuitive aspect of it and the energy aspect. So whether somebody, you know, somebody might be listening and thinking, oh, intuitive or energy. Well, it is all energy, whether you believe it or not. And you're someone that is just learning about that, that's okay. But it's like anything. What do you feel? That automatical feeling when you get into a space, whether you're shopping, you know, going to a friend's, whatever it is, you're just truly helping somebody to live that. And I think it's so important for people to fully understand that. And I know for myself, I go through periods where I need to move things around. So talk to me in a couple ways, which is once you do something, you know, when you would work with a client, is it set? Do you need to move it because something has transitioned in my life? Like how often do we move through these patterns? Or if it's set properly, I don't need to. It's perfect and good and off I go.
That's a great question, because that's a question that everybody always asks me.
Okay, good.
What do I need to do? Do I have to like change my entire house? And I'm like, no, you don't.
Right.
So most of the time what happens with a space, and I tell everybody this, your space, your home is okay. Every space has a personality. It's like a fingerprint to you. And so just like you and I, when people meet us, they find us unique to us. So are we going to change everything about Tasia or everything about Donna? No, we tweak certain things, and we tweak it based on what we are. So when I come into a home, I would say, okay, we first measure the home, and I look at different points, whether they're good or they need a little bit of tweaking. Sometimes they need a lot of tweaking. And based on that, I look at your stuff, because I am at the base of it a designer. I want your home to be beautiful for you, not beautiful for me.
Right.
So we take a look at what you have. And what happens in the space is that there are 5 different elements. I'm just going to very quickly name them: metal, water, wood, fire, and earth. And each of these elements have color systems, patterns, or the actual element itself. So we look at your space and we go, okay, I will look at what is the flow of a space. And when I look at the flow, it's not just the visual flow, it's the physical flow. What is the energetic flow of a space? Then we may move things around in your space, like pictures or artwork or decor, so that it goes according to the elements that are required in that space. So for example, cushions or, you know, something like that. The only time where I would say we really need to shift something or buy something is if the client doesn't have it, then we will work separately based on like, you know, most of the time the clients want to buy like a little interior decor package where we do like a little shopping spree because they want to know the flow. And then we take a look at that and we go, okay, with what you have, let's make sure that everything is in synergy based on the design basis, and it also goes with the elements, and we put it in the space. I've had situations where I give an example. A client had a home office, and she was of the earth element. The room itself was the fire element, but she had painted the wall blue, which is water. Now water puts out a fire. So whatever prosperity she's trying to create in that room, all the energy is being doused. Any positive, abundant energy that needs to be created in this room is being doused. So I asked her to paint it white, and based on the colors, I just gave her color systems to buy artwork and cushions, and we helped each other a little bit along. And then I gave her a color for the walls. Her prosperity point. She has clients coming out of the wazoo right now.
Wow.
And so, you know, it's only in things like that we would change something about. The only time that I would seriously say change something is in bedrooms where there's an extreme sick point. So there's an illness point that could cause, that are cancer causing, accident causing. There are sometimes situations where people are very worried about death or accidents. And then I would say, please don't sleep in this space. Try not to activate. I call it the activation of energy. It's like energetic dust. Try not to move somebody else somewhere else. But usually I don't do that. Like, if somebody's sleeping in a bedroom, we try and, because everybody likes their space. And, why shift people around and cause other kinds of emotional upset, right? So I don't normally do that, no.
Right. And I'm sure when you get into someone's space that, whether it's a couple and, even an older couple where it's like, okay, these things are mine, right? And how do you shift things around? And, you'd be better if we could get rid of that piece, right? And I don't know if you go to that extent, but I think, a lot of times when you look at, and it doesn't even have to be, you mentioned the word hoarder earlier. This doesn't even have to be, everybody's got a version of what hoarding is. I think I'm a paper hoarder. I like to write paper everywhere, right? So, but it's, there must be such this synergy that you have to, and in your own energetic space that needs to really bring them into a space of trust and calm. So it's like, it is your space. I'm truly, when you're at that point, right? So you're bringing people to and through that point, I'd say, with this, when you look at your home harmony system, right? You're bringing them through to help them so much to understand. It might feel like this struggle for now, but once you're there and you're over the hurdle, oh my God, you're going to rest in it and just revel in it and into that wellness, right?
Well, the thing about this that, I know is a gift for me is because I worked with, as an intervener, I'm trained. There's only one area in the world that we can be trained. There are very few of us. There are not a lot of us. And one of the big things about being an intervener, when we're working with individuals who are deaf-blind, and I even design for individuals with autism and things like that, one of the biggest things about it is that there is your brain creates patterns and routines. And the moment you try and shift from a pattern or routine, there is resistance, and then things come up for you. Now with seniors or elders, or even you and I talk about this and I say, it doesn't matter whether you have, because a lot of parents tell me they have young children who are like 1 or 2 years old. And I said, it doesn't matter. Every single one of us has built a routine based on our space, the way we move, the way we shift. And if you try and move us out of this routine and we feel like we've lost control of the situation, there will be a behavior, there will be grieving, and a lot of things come up from that. And the last thing I want is that to happen in the space. So one of the biggest ways that I go in to work with any of my clients is that we work with their routines. And if we need to shift it, there is an agreement with it. So even when I work with the little kids, I talk to the kids about their space. I ask their permission. I ask them what they want. And the parents are surprised because the kids do not act up. They're like, I don't understand it. And I'm like, that's because I gave them the respect of their choice and their decision. And I do the same thing with seniors, because it's all about a space and privacy and the respect that is your personal space. Yes.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like anything, that resistance is there. And I think when we're talking even this reunion, right, it's all about self-love. It's getting over those elements of resistance. We all have it. I know, and I'm not here to start whatever, but we all have these pockets of resistance. And it's like, okay, sometimes it's like we have to honestly use a little bit more of the blind faith, and not to, with being deafblind, but truly to just have that faith to say, there's something better on the other side. And if not, I need to at least give it a shot. As you're talking about how you bring the science aspect into it, sort of, and feng shui, I don't think, from my understanding, is deemed as science by any regards. No. More of a pseudoscience. However, once you understand energy and living and lifestyle, it doesn't matter. If you feel better, you're the ultimate, the gauge, right? It's you. So the science is, you're the placebo. So when you do look from that neuroscience, if I just might add a little bit of that in there, which is people, once they start to understand the science that neuroscience has put in it and how the brain works, it's exactly that. These patterns, they take that 90 days. You have to keep living into that before you can cut yourself off and say yes or no. Right? To truly, in the past, I think it was 21 days makes a habit. And I sort of have this 21 days gets you to this point that, okay, kudos, I made it a habit. Now I need to further it along so it becomes, whether you continue to use the word habit or a practice or potentially a ritual, to shift that, right? So yeah.
A lot of the times it's mindset. So would you mind if I told a little bit of a story that would help what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So I had a client who I was called to their home. It's a beautiful home, very expensive. It was on a lake, and I can go into a little bit. I don't know whether I should go into a little bit more about my gifts. I just wanted to tell everybody I am clairvoyant, which means that I do access lots of stuff that people are terrified of, and trust me, it terrifies me a lot of the time too, because I don't want to listen to it.
Maybe before, just tell people in case they don't know what that is. I do, but let's just share just a tiny bit.
So I, besides being able to feel space, and I mean feel space. So if you are angry, I will know it straight away. If you're sad, I know it straight away. Some of it is body language, but I can also feel the feeling. If you're sad, I actually feel the feeling. I also hear spirits. I don't often see them, thankfully, because that would absolutely terrify me, but I do hear them and I can actually speak to them. I try, there have been people who have actually called me to the host because I can actually clear a spirit, as long as it's not something demonic from a place. And when I do walk into homes, a lot of people tell me, well, there are lots of things that go on. So for example, the other day I came across a lady and I had just met her, like, you know, I didn't know her at all. And we are having a conversation. I just said, by the way, how many children do you have living with you in your house? She said, one. I'm like, no, you have two. And she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, your little daughter has been sleeping in your bed for the last 2 weeks, right? And she's been telling you that she's afraid of her room. And I like, wait, do you want to know why? Because she has another little child spirit that's scaring her in her bedroom. And the mother was like, how do you know this? And I said, because I can feel it off your energy. I didn't really, it's like kind of like a picture that comes to my head of the situation in a home. And I do a lot of my design online, so I don't necessarily have to be in with this person. I can sense it sometimes across in a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I'll clear it. I cleared the spirit away just within 5 minutes. And the daughter came back from school and asked her mom, what did you do to my room? It's so clean now. And the mom was like, what? I didn't do anything.
I just swiped the energy away. Yeah.
And it wasn't like the little spirit. Like a lot of these people say, well, what did they do? Are they haunting me? I'm like, they're just stuck souls. They don't know how to get to where they go. And they just kind of latch on to living energy because that's the only way that they think they're still living, or they're kind of stuck, right? So they don't normally try to do any harm. So that's what the clairvoyancy is. And thankfully, that's where it goes. So my story was about me going to a client's home, and he built this home. It was a $4 million home. And he was absolutely, I mean, it should be a home that he absolutely loved, but he absolutely hated it. And he had two, when I went over there, he had two very young children. One was 1 and one was like 3 years old. And the wife came up to me and said, I just want you to know that my husband is terrifying me because he comes home from work every day and talks about his home and his eyes are bulging out of his head. Wow. And you can see the veins in his head, and he's going, I hate my house, I hate my house. So I took him aside and I asked him, what's going on? Like, what is going on with you? Because they called me for a feng shui appointment, mm-hmm. not more for a design. The house was beautiful already. And he said, well, everything when he was building this house was about, everything went wrong. Everything went wrong, you know, from things collapsing to things not fitting, to him having to reorder stuff, to things breaking. And the building of the house took longer than necessary. So I said to him, okay, there are a couple of things that are going on here. Firstly, you went and built on ceremonial ground. So here in Canada, we have a lot of Indigenous land with Indigenous tribes. And we know that with Indigenous tribes, they have what we call shamans. And shamans stay back as spirits because some of the land is sacred ground. Not only did he build on sacred ground, he built on the ceremonial ground because it was by a lake on a little finger. And the spirits were creating havoc. That's why there were so many accidents.
Right.
So I had to have a conversation. Now, this may sound funny to a lot of viewers. It was a very quick conversation going, okay, this chap cannot just lift his house and like walk it somewhere else. It's going to be here. So can we come to a compromise? What do you need to show for him to show you respect for your ground? And all they wanted was just to bring water in the home because it was by a lake, and to have something that represented tribe. And he had a lots of like indigenous, he had artwork and bear skins and dream catchers. Even though he didn't believe in it, he thought of it as nice decor. So we just brought it down to space. So I also asked him, what is this hate? Let's recreate a story. And when I talk about mindset, now he has created in his mind a story that this house was hateful. So I brought him to his kitchen, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous kitchen with big windows that overlook the lake. And I said, okay, tell me about this. He had a stone. I don't know whether it was granite or marble, either one. It looked like more like a marble. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I want you to tell me about this marble. He's like, I hate this marble. It's like, what? It's like, what? And I'm like, okay, all right, let's take a step back here. And I said, okay, put your hand on the marble. And it was in the middle of winter. And I said, put your hand on the marble. What do you feel? It's cold. I'm like, okay, I know it's cold. But okay, tell me where did this marble came from? Because he built his house, right? He said he came from Italy. So I said, okay, think of Italy. Have you ever been to Italy? He was like, yes. And I'm like, okay, so think of Italy. What's Italy about? He was like, blue skies, vineyards, joy, sunshine. I'm like, okay, so think about this. This beautiful piece of marble came from the ground in Italy. This beautiful, abundant, gorgeous country. And if you look at this piece of marble, there was a little vein that was coming through it. And I said, look at this vein. It looks like the river that your house is situated beside. And this little big, there was a little bit of a splotch on it. This is where your house is situated, on the little finger by this lake. Do you see that? He was like, yes, I do. And I'm like, now I want you to think, every time you look at this piece of marble, I want you to think of Italy and the lake that you built this house. Because he said that he built this house so that he could fish with his children and do ice fishing and do all these beautiful things. And I said, what we're doing right now is remyelinizing your brain, which is the creation of pathways in your brain. And think of it, if you had a shed and a little field where you walked from your house to that shed every day, you created a pathway. You kind of created a pathway. Now I'm just asking you to walk a different route and to create a different pathway to how you think of the story of your house. Touch your house in a different way and sense your house in a different way. And I left that place. I mean, we did the feng shui, we did everything in the house that was required. His wife called me up a few days later and said, I don't know what you did, but my husband comes home every day and he looks at his house and says, I love my house now. I have so much joy, and the family is now happy.
You know, it's, there's so much, right, that I mean, I feel that, I love it. I think it's, for anyone that's listening, that little nugget that you've got right there is in, you know, we hear the gratitude, the appreciation. We forget, just stop and be mindful in these small moments, because once you do shift your energy around that thing, right, it softens it right there. You've made and created this new relationship with it, right? We forget, and you know, when you talk the home, you're living in this space, right? Now, you had mentioned earlier that you do this over Zoom with people, or the phone, or whatever, however that works, which is great. I'm curious, do you know, how has it been even with people with home offices? I mean, that must have been a bit of a challenge for people this year, having to now put home offices in and work in different environments. Had that impacted you at all?
No, we do exactly the same thing, because we're looking at the space. I mean, the only thing that really, there's a tweak of a difference is the color. So if we're looking at color systems and all that, then what I do is I would look at the color of a home, but everything is exactly the same. It's just that I may not, that regrettably, I'm not going to be energetically in the same space so that we can feel like physical energy. But they show me around the home, we take photographs, the measurements taken, everything is exactly the same. It's just that the client may actually have to do a little bit of the work by taking the measurements and to take cardinal points for me, so that we always look at the feng shui, because the feng shui in an office space is incredibly important, because we're talking about prosperity. We're talking about joyfulness, energy, and money. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that in creativity in a space, then the point of the office is what?
We might need to talk, because who can't use a little bit more money, prosperity, and I mean, it's a whole, you're talking a whole package here, right? And yeah, there's so many areas. What about the changes with the seasons? You know, you talk about color palettes and that. Does that have an effect, or that would just be, you know what, once you've rested in this space, you can change that? Or do you have people really come to something that they love? Like, when do we go through this? Okay, now I am finished with it.
So what I do is, when we look at the foundation of space, we always look at the element of each room, because every room will sit within an element. So in the feng shui cycle, we have what we call destructive and productive cycles, because each element produces or destroys something. So if we're changing seasons, and like I do that in my space, like I just took away a lot of decor behind me. But because behind me is what I call the south side of the office, it requires fire. So everything behind me, even though I love decorating with white and then with color, if I didn't want bright color in the space, I put things like candles to represent fire. So I can do it in different ways that are smart. Or if you really want color, then we can go by color of seasons, but we go by color systems, warm and cooler colors, things like that, and I can incorporate in the space, and we can work on that. It's more, that's more like my happy shopping spree with my clients.
Right. You're teaching people that it's not just this flat season, like it's not Christmas and Easter, whatever, right? You're talking, it's color. There's a world of color.
Oh, there's a world of color.
And it's natural, right? And I think because you're bringing in the elements, right? You're using the elements, people are understanding more and more the importance of nature, right? It's just how do they live in it, with it, around it, through it, right? All of that. So that's beautiful. So we didn't really touch on, do you work mostly with residential clients, or do you work with, companies and that type of thing? Because
I work with everybody.
Right.
So I work with anybody who wants, I can work in residences, but I believe that whether you're working in an office space, a commercial or retail space, you require the same thing, because you spend so much time there working. Why would you want disharmony in your space? Why would you not want prosperity? So I've worked with spas. I am currently designing a space for a dental office that works with a lot of disability. They work with a lot of people with autism. So that has to be a factor, because they sense things in a very different way, but there just needs to be access for anybody who does and doesn't require the access on any level.
Right.
I work in offices or commercial spaces, anything, even the front and the back of the house or your backyard. Right. Every space will have feng shui. Yes. Right. And when I do feng shui, of course, even real estate agents. So when you're buying a new house or you actually want to sell your house, a lot of people who are actually purchasing from far away, they want to sense the space, and they want to know what the space is going to do and whether the family will have synergy when they're moving to a house. So they may have bought the house, or they're going to move into a space, and that's a prime time for them to set something up before routines are set into space, working with their stuff too. Yeah.
So then even for your own self, do you get into, because I look at self-love in many regards, and that's sort of the journey as people listen to other speakers, but we touch on it early on where we're all going through this journey. So even for yourself, what maybe share with the audience, I think, what does someone like you who's already working in this beautiful, because people would go like, of course you're working with beautiful things, and you're moving things around, your life must be fabulous, you would have no problems, kind of thing, right? Because if you are the master at feng shui, well then you've got your prosperity, your wellness, everything's to a T. Talk to me. Is that true?
Okay. So,
and I don't
No. Oh, that's actually a really good question, because people ask me that. And what I think I didn't answer previously, because you asked me whether or not something changes. What I forgot to mention was that you have your actual feng shui of the house. And as I said, the only reason why it's not a science is because you cannot replicate every house doing the exact same thing. And one of the things why I say, please don't go online and read a lot of stuff, because you are taking from one space and actually not looking at your own space. Get somebody like me who is actually a master in something to do it for you, so we can calculate it, because it's mathematical. But what also happens is that every year, and we call it the feng shui year, not the Chinese New Year, but the feng shui year. It starts at a different time. When the planets realign, it's just like, you think about it, when you are nearer to the sun, further from the sun flares, it creates on our earth different things, like the earth heats up, the tides shift. So when you have planetary alliance within that year, it creates a different kind of synergy for that year. And what we do is then we kind of shift things around for the year, depending on what's happening for that year in the space. So I would do the same thing. I just told my husband 2 days ago, I need 45 pounds of heavy breathable metal that we need to put under our beds, because this year, for where my space is, there's going to be some illness and some challenges. I don't want that. I need to negate it. find me 45 pounds of metal, please. Now, stat.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Right. You know, you touch that to me. I mean, I love astrology and I follow it in the cosmos, and because I feel all that, right? Like I feel into what's coming. And I know for people that, you know, may only be learning about it, that's great. And continue to explore, right? Because it's whether you want to look at it as astrology in the old
It's
horoscope
not astrology,
model, it's none
No.
of that. No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Yeah.
when people hear it, that's probably the first thing that comes to mind. Just think of it as the weatherman. They're watching the weather patterns coming through, and it's totally disrupting. There's activity up there that you don't see, but so many people feel it, right? So working with what you do, it's just ground it all and making sure that people themselves, you're helping them to feel grounded in their own body, in their own space, and then they can learn more and more to say, how do I do this when I get outside of my space? How do I do this when I'm doing a certain activity, whatever that is, right? Okay. Wow. So we've got an interesting year coming up then. So maybe just, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure.
Because I love that you said that. So we think that 2020, for those of us, you know, who might have been going through a lot, and we all are, there's so much transition going on, but some people have obviously come through more grounded, right? We still will all have disruption, and that happens in different areas of our own lives.
Well, I think this year is not what I think, but what is we know is coming for the next, starting from the feng shui year starts on February the 4th. So it's starting earlier than what we would call the Lunar New Year. And for a lot of people, just so we know, when a lot of people come to me with their Chinese elements, and I tell them, don't even follow that, because that's based on superstition. We are talking about the physical magnetic vibrancies based on cardinal points on the earth.
Thank you for clarifying.
It's based on lunar. The only reason why it's based on lunar was because this is a 3,000-year-old science. And at that point of time, with ancient civilizations, they didn't have the technology that we have today. They could only go by the sun, the moon, and the way the planet reacted.
Absolutely.
So what's going to happen in the next 1 year is that it's going to be a year of a lot of hard work. And there are going to be a lot of challenges depending on where specific things fall within the house. Because when we look at the house, we also look at cardinal points where things are placed within the zone, the elements of the zone. Things are going to be interacting and reacting. So if, say, for example, a bedroom is in a place where there's going to be a lot of negative friction happening within that space, then you're going to have challenges like illnesses, being sick a lot, digestive issues, sleeplessness. If it's in a home office area, then what's going to happen is that you are going to have challenges working, right? You know, it's not just about hard work, but you're going to have things thrown your way.
Right.
And it's all about, if you really think about it, I mean, we talk about light therapy and color therapy. This is just about vibration. So, you know, if my tummy is not feeling well, then I am not going to be as focused. Or, you know, if I'm feeling lethargic in my office, then I am not going to be motivated, or I'm tired and I can't really, you know, there are all of these things that are going to come on in the space. So we want to negate the challenges, and they're very easy to negate.
Right.
We put into systems either specific things that are metal based, like the metal that I talked about. There are moving metals that we can put in place that looks like clocks or little things that move around consistently to shift, because metal is a very strong shifting energy. Like, you know, just like think of acupuncture, or, you know, it's this one of the strongest ways to negate energy, because it's magnetic. It creates magnetic fields.
Right.
And then there's also what we call salt cures that are easy for people to create. All salt is it absorbs energy from around, and it crystallizes energy and you throw it out. So you're just taking in negative ions, you're creating it. And it's a fascinating thing. It's like a little science experiment. You just put it in a bowl, you put some form of metal in it that I will show you how to create, and then it crystallizes over time and you throw it out, because you can't reuse your bowls. You've created like a kind of a weird, as I said, science project there, right?
Well, exactly. It's pulling out. So yeah, and I mean, I think that's something for people, if they're interested to go further, that's where they would explore and get into working and understanding your services more. You know, that's not to, you know, letting everybody know that the feng shui year ahead is going to be difficult. Does not.
No, it's not going to be
it's not there to scare you. This is not a fear factor. This is truly to just say, it's just something that is red and it's already there, right? So just like no one knew exactly what COVID was going to be, right? Because you can hear people knew there was disruption. Did they know exactly what it was? No. And I think that's no different at any point in history. It's just saying, how do we take some of that personal power back to say, what can I do in my own space, right? So that I do sit in that space of self-love. Because if you can sit at home doing that, and now that we're working at home, then we can truly open up into a greater space of wellness and well-being. So that's beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to share? This has been just fabulous. I know it's a little shorter, but that's okay. I want to have.
I'm not sure. I know that I would invite everybody to. I have these little bookings where people don't really understand and they just want to chat with me. They can always book something with me and chat, because a lot of people think that feng shui is religious, but feng shui is just one asset that I'm looking into the space. We're also looking at disability, sensory input. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is how the brain senses your space. So think of it this way. I mean, I can talk about it a little bit more, but it's important for people to realize, because people sit in a space and they don't know how they're accessing your space. A lot of people don't realize that your brain picks up information through things. So like when you're looking at something, when you're tasting and you're touching, it's turned around from the way. So say, for example, you see something, your optical nerve then takes it, puts in your brain, and your brain kind of goes, oh, it's that. Okay. So everything that you see, you touch, you smell, you taste is sensed through what energetic vibrations. And we're not talking about woo energy. We're talking about actual scientific energy. So your space, when I look at design, I'm also looking at how you sense the space, because some people have stronger sense. Some people feel better when they taste. Some people feel better when they touch. And we incorporate those things in design. And I can always talk about tips and little things on how you would take that on. So a very simple way of looking at it, and that I tell everybody that you should have in your space, all about wellness, is that you should have enough light in your home. Please make sure that if you don't have a lot of natural light, have a lot of light around you. Right now I have like 2 things going because I want light, and light creates something. Sleep. A lot of people are not sleeping well right now. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because besides having TVs in the room, you have a TV in the room, please try and remove it if you really can. But a lot of people are taking their blue light to bed and electronics. And a lot of people don't realize how much it inhibits and suppresses melatonin production. And then you can't sleep, so you sleep later. Or when they wake up, they're not, they don't have things like sunlights or happy lights where they have, things, and your serotonin is then not being produced. And that creates positive, like emotional levels within the body. So light is huge, along with air. So one of those things that there are a lot of things that I can go into, that I'm creating for people to make sure that they bring in self-care, because that brings joy and wellness to their space. Bring all of that to you.
It is. It's so important, to just, I think it's to slow down, right? We have to slow down to enjoy it. So even everything you're saying, you go and you help somebody with their home. Well, if they're just moving through it like lightning, right? They're not even enjoying it. And it doesn't matter if it's a, $1,000, 500 square foot apartment, or the $400,000 or $4 million home that you were speaking of. It doesn't matter. If it's not livable and you're not sort of in it as an entire part of you, then that's where you're sort of cutting off part of this energy of who you are, and you're not looking at.
I think what's happening in a lot of homes with the clients that I see is that because they don't have control over what is going on outside, they try and bring that control within the home. So to speak to it very quickly, if, like with your children, I talk to people a lot about allowing your child to be the person that they are, if you have children at home, and the people around you. So say, for example, I am a visual kinesthetic learner, but my husband may not be. Your children may not be. So find out their learning experiences, and we can always chat more about those things later on, but find out the systems and find a place for you to create wellness for yourself, whether it's your bathroom where you create a spa, you have a little, like space where you listen to things, everybody sets spaces up for other people in the home, but they don't set up their personal space. And if you need to go to a space to just rejuvenate yourself, people forget to do that. So I would encourage everybody, even if it's a small little space where you snuggle up, you have a heavy blanket and you read, find your own personal space.
It is one little thing, if that's all it is, right? Yeah. Wow. So then in this entire time that we've had together, this is fabulous. I would love to just, you know, you've shared, but is there sort of one word, one phrase that you want them to leave with? If we said, you know what, you're always going to remember Tasia and how you need to look at your home, and from that outer space, that joy, that wellness, what can we leave them with? Whether it's a word, a phrase that's just going to resonate.
Well, remember that you can love yourself in your home. A lot of people say, well, I love my home, but a lot of people have told me that when they love their home, there's still more to come. Remember that the more to come is easy to get to, even if you just need to reach out for help, and pass it on. Pass on that love. It's not just about you, it's about giving to other people too.
Right. So love yourself in your home, everyone. This is just wonderful. I thank you so much. LoveLight Design, first of all, I should have said when we first started, I just love the name. I mean, the whole thing, it resonates exactly as it should. So thank you for that. For those of you that are going to continue with us, Tasia is going to put together a little bit of an exercise, something that you can do to really take some of this at home and delve into it more. So that'll be in that collection of at-home solutions that we're putting together for you. So until we see you again, thank you. And thank you again, Tasia. This is just wonderful. And you work with clients around the globe. Yes?
Yes, I do.
Yes, which is fabulous because she doesn't need to be in your space. So thank you everyone again for being here, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
See you again. Take care.